Hi folks, how are we doing? I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. I hope you are finding the love and you're witnessing the blessings that are there in life in these difficult times. It is hard, my friends, but we are all in this together. So I'm offering these devotions, doing my little bit for hope, I suppose, doing what I can, playing my role in being a part of the solution. These devotions are offered as a balm for the heart, the mind, the spirit and the soul. And the title for today's devotion it's a question really. Is imagination more important than knowledge? I'm sure there's some arguments there. So I invite us to still ourselves in silence. Let us invite a loving presence to be here amongst us and to awaken from deep, deep within us all. I have lit the flame of freedom in the cup of belonging, acceptance, and in love. We join together in our physical separation, but united in our devotion to life and to love. Help us to sing for joy like the birds each morning sing their faith in being alive and being here. May we know the deep connections that sustain us, the roots that hold and nurture us beneath the surface of our lives. May we be unafraid to explore the depths of being, the many layers of life. May we awaken to all that is life, including the unseen, the unknown. May our vision be uninhibited. May what we know, may it not inhibit us in any way. May we be open to new vision beyond our imaginings. May we remember that we are deeply connected in heart, mind, spirit and soul. May we be open to all that this day brings, to all that life offers, and may we offer our all to life. May our very being become a vessel for love this day and in all the days to come. Amen. Now, one of the many, many delights in life, and there are many, but one of my favourites is watching children at Christmas time. I love observing my nieces and nephews getting together, as they don't see one another much, maybe once a year. It's usually just after Christmas, actually, between Christmas and New Year, as they open their gifts together. And I remember a Christmas a few years ago delighting in watching the young and active imaginations of the youngest two, Johnny and Sammy, playing with what looked like mechanical insects, seeing their imaginations come alive and create little adventures and worlds together. I also loved watching the older two and listening to them as Joey and Scarlett, as they went off into the other room with a guitar and began to write music together. They wrote a song which they would perform to each of us separately at the time. It was beautiful witnessing their creative minds work together and watching them share their imaginations with us all. It's truly amazing what can be created when people come together in love. These two sets of children had not spent much time together in the years before, and yet the rapport they shared and the creativity that came from it was a beautiful thing to behold. Just a wonderful example of the beautiful and creative thing that is the human imagination, especially in a child. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see life through the eyes of a child once again? Wouldn't it be wonderful to see the wonder and mystery of all life once again, to see the things around us as fertile ground for adventure, rather than just mere objects to be used and discarded? Linda Sexton captures this feeling almost perfectly in Ordinarily Sacred. She wrote, "My son once found the hip bone of a large cow. He wore it as a stately garment or as armour. He played the bone like a guitar, or played himself in the bone like a dinosaur. He circulated his interest upon the bone back into his discovery of it in the woods, to the being who had walked before abandoning it, to the shape and feel of it, to hanging it on the wall and looking at it and the shadows it casts. And the bone was transformed, quite beyond the original fragment of decay in the woods, into images of everything from death to art. It got me thinking of my own childhood, these words actually, and the little adventures that I would create in my own mind. Memories that at one time become lost in so many other things. I thought of times just before going off alone and creating whole worlds in my imagination. I remembered Sunday mornings at my grandparents' farm and waking very early in my pyjamas and getting my granddad's broken, no longer usable rifle and pretending I was John Wayne defending the Alamo, or other such adventures and many other dreams and memories too. I remembered too the fascination with old animal skulls, especially the jaws and teeth. It brought back lots of lovely memories of innocent and happy days, memories which for years had become lost. I thought about all these things as I drove back to Altrincham after that Christmas that I'd been, where I'd witnessed my nieces and nephews, to prepare myself for worship the next day actually. It created a rather beautiful space in the soul of me. And as I was driving, I was thinking about a meditation I'd read just a couple of days before, a meditation titled Magical Thinking by Colin Boson. The sign in the window pane of Christine Beba's toy shop in London reads, "We do not exist, but if you think we do and would like to visit, please knock." Knock I have. In truth, I have more than knocked. I have entered the sanctum of the toy shop itself. It is a strange and magical place, filled with curios, dollhouse furniture and hand-carved toys. Every surface is covered. The cupboard displays cases stacked high with miniature flowers, snapping tin alligators, painted puzzles that move, penny whistles and cheap magic tricks. Several signs proclaiming "Do not touch" suggests that this might not be a shop for small children. Yet some of my fondest childhood memories are of Christine Beba's. For 3 summers while my father taught a study abroad course, my family rented a flat around the corner. Every chance I got, I would wander over to the toy shop. The shop owner, Christine Beba herself, seemed to delight in entertaining small children. There were magic tricks, toys that made noises and puzzles. Within the walls of the shop, the world seemed just a little more wonderful than outside. The shop and its owner did much to teach me about the power of imagination, creative play, the ability to dream and discover new things help make us human, you know. Without them there would be no culture, no religion, no art and no science. They help us to define and redefine the world, for as William Shakespeare wrote, "We are such stuff as dreams are made." My friend Richard once defined magic as the act of imagining something and then creating it. "I think I'm hungry. I want a sandwich," he would say. "I imagine it and then I create it. That's magic." Open yourself to the marvellous that surrounds you. Seek it out, if only for a moment, and you never know what sort of magic you might create. So much of the world first began as a dream. So much of the world has yet to be dreamed. Colin Bosse captures beautifully the power and magic of the imagination in this beautifully moving meditation, don't you think? It does for me anyway. One of my favourite quotes actually comes from Albert Einstein. People tend to like to quote him. Well, he once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited to all we now know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world and all there ever will be to know and understand. Without imagination, there is no way that he could have developed the theory of relativity. Without it, there is no way he could have stepped beyond the perceived wisdom of the time. Without imagination, there is no way that Beethoven could have created the Ninth Symphony, groundbreaking in so many ways, and composed while he himself had become deaf. Beethoven never even heard his own masterpiece, and yet he created it in his imagination. Incredible. Without imagination, there is no way that Shakespeare could have created his masterpiece Hamlet. Without imagination, J.R.R. Tolkien would not have created those incredible works, The Lord of the Rings. And without imagination, Peter Jackson would not have been able to create the cinematic masterpieces that were the motion pictures, those incredible films. Without imagination, so much of what brings pleasure to our lives, that makes life, would never have come to pass. It is imagination as an expression of our creativity that enables us to boldly explore our world and envision worlds and reality beyond prosaic fact. I agree with Einstein. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Doesn't say knowledge isn't important, by the way, please don't get me wrong. But without imagination, we never move beyond the knowledge that we know today. We need to imagine more. It is imagination that allows us to see beyond the confines of the understanding of the day. In the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew's Gospel, chapter 5, Jesus begins his ministry with his vision of how a good person, a holy person, should be. He begins by telling the people that they are the light of the world, that it is through them that the kingdom will come about. And then in the final verses, he once again turns the wisdom of the day right around by rejecting the eye for an eye concept of justice, and tells those who will listen that they must love their enemies. This new thinking, this new way of being grows from that very same place of imagination, from which all creativity flows. Nothing would ever change without it. We'd still be in the trees or in the caves. It's imagination that is the spark for everything. Yes, all creativity flows from the imagination, but so do many of our troubles too. Our imagination can project all kinds of fears onto our psyches. Throughout history, this has been exploited. Aspects of the media both feed on us, Politics and religion has often operated here too. They have preyed on our fears and this sense that there is something fundamentally wrong with us. I don't get it. Advertising is the worst, really. It does similar things, especially the beauty industry. They sell us an imagined ideal of what we can be, and thus we dream of reaching some weird perfection. When the truth is that the only perfection we're ever capable of attaining is perfect love. And perfect love is acceptance of all, no matter who they are or where they have been. The rest, well, beyond. Not that there's anything wrong with us. I don't believe that for a second. How can we be if we're the light of the world? Not fundamentally, at least. Fear, though, can tap into that other place deep within us, the same place that creativity grows from. Imagination is, of course, a double-edged sword. The same thing that creates all that is beautiful, wonderful, moving, and deeply spiritual in life is also the same thing that creates all that is destructive, hateful, and dehumanizing too. All of it grows from the same place, deep in the marrow of our being, what I would call our soul. Fear and love are two sides of the same coin, and the one that wins is the one that we feed. Brings to mind a story you probably know really well of an old Cherokee teaching his grandson about life. "A fight is going on inside me," he said to the boy. "It's a terrible fight, and it's between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, ego, and it makes me cynical about life." And he continued, "The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, faith, and it fills me with enthusiasm for life. And the same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too. Now the grandson thought about this for a minute or two, and then he asked his grandfather a question. Well, which wolf wins? And the Cherokee replied, the one that you feed. The key, it would seem, is how we feed our souls, and it's in the same way the food that we eat affects our bodies, so too the stimulus we feed our hearts and minds with affects our souls. And we feed our souls in many, many ways. Art is one, but it's just as easily fed by the ordinary. And I noticed that Christmas as I enjoyed my nieces and nephews' imaginations come to life. My soul was beautifully enriched by the whole experience. As I drove back alone that night, I wept at the beauty of it all, and the space that it had created in my soul to awaken my own imagination, give birth to my own creativity, my own gift to share with the world. Brings to mind the following extract from Graziano Mashishi's book, Wheat and Winds and the Wolf of Gubbio. He writes, you hear an old song and the face of a lost loved one suddenly appears, and in the space of the song the loved one grabs your loneliness by the collar and sends it out the door. You stand before a painting and the peaceful landscape calls you in, or a scene of violent pain holds you in thrall, and for a minute that's longer than eternity you enter the serenity, or you rage and grieve along with the picture's tortured souls. You read a piece of poetry, and for the span of a minute or an hour you find a space to sit and listen to the sound of naked joy, or to stare into the face of unfathomable grief. More than anything else, that's what good art does. Not answer questions or set agendas, but create space. Space to laugh, to mourn, and to wonder who and how and why we are. Marchesi captures the transformative nature of the imagination. He honours it and he sees it as a vehicle of love and service. Service to humanity and service to God. And I, for one, think he's right. Everything that we do begins in the imagination, which is much more than just our individual thoughts. We are fed from everything, and that little bit more than everything too, you know. It's imagination that leads to action. You see, what we imagine, we live. And how we live really matters, because everything that we do and everything we don't do actually really matters. Why, you may well ask? Well, because everything that we do impacts on those around us, in who we live and breathe and share our being. We are constantly feeding one another and life itself, just as everyone we come into contact with. And the whole of life is feeding us, even if we're not conscious of this. There is still so much we don't know and probably will never know. This is why the imagination is, in the words of Einstein, more important than knowledge. Imagination enables us to become all we're meant to be. It creates our destiny. It allows us to explore new routes and even carve ones that were not there before, weren't even dreamed of. That's the real beauty of imagination, for with it there is always something new to be seen, felt, experienced, something new to fall in love with. And don't we all need something new to fall in love with? I know I do. And we need our imaginations for that. because it's our imagination that brings our world alive. So be careful how you feed life and how life feeds you, and how you feed life with your imagination. I'm going to end today's reflection with a few words of blessing. You know, we need to bless more, and we can all bless. We do so by giving our whole hearts to life. So let's begin right now. Let's give our whole hearts to life. So here's a few final words of blessing. Let's be still. May your imagination be fired. May ye be lamps unto yourself, be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourself as the only lamp, and shine some light on the world with your imagination. Just imagine what can be seen. And may the light shine bright from your very being, and may it do so in all that you feel, in all that you think, in all that you say, in all that you do. Amen. Imagination.